The American Civil War was fought between the southern states and the northern states. That's why it's often called the War Between the States. The southern states were called the Confederacy, and the northern states were called the Union.
This was the deadliest conflict in American history. An estimated 680,000 men died because of the war. This is more than World War I, World War II, the Vietnam War, and the Korean War combined.
Today, it's often believed that the morality of slavery caused the war. While it did play a role, most historians agree it was much more than that. The causes were major disagreements on two main issues. One, states' rights, which means a state's ability to decide their own future. And number two, a congressional proposal to raise tariffs from 15% to 45%.
The disagreements didn't just happen overnight. They came as a result of the way the North and the South had developed. The Southern economy was agriculturally based and relied on slave labor. The Northern economy was heavy on manufacturing, and many of their workers were poor immigrants from Europe. This created a difference in the social cultures and the political beliefs.
The South's concerns intensified in the fall of 1860 when Abraham Lincoln was elected the 16th president. The Republican Party with which he was a member was anti-slavery.
That's when, one by one, Southern states decided that they could no longer be a part of the United States. South Carolina was the first to secede or leave the Union, just weeks after Lincoln had won the election. And by the end of January, 6 more states had left the Union.
And on the day before Lincoln took office, March 3, 1861, President James Buchanan signed into law the massive tariff increase the South so feared.
The states called themselves the Confederate States of America. They chose a president, patterned their constitution after the U.S. Constitution, and went about the business of running their new country.
The South claimed to own all of the federal buildings in their new country, including forts. So when Confederate soldiers demanded federal troops leave Fort Sumter in South Carolina, fighting broke out, and the war between the states began.
After Fort Sumter, President Lincoln called for 75,000 volunteers to, and I'm quoting, put down the rebellion. This caused 4 more southern states to leave the Union. This brought the total to 11, and Tennessee was the last to leave. The South was at a big disadvantage when it came to fighting the war with the United States because the North had 80% of the manufacturing plants, 71% of the population, 71% of the railroads. The South did have very good military commanders and they had motivated troops, but in the end it was not enough. The Union Army prevailed and the United States remained one country.
The Confederacy eventually surrendered and the war officially ended on April 9, 1865.
The war bankrupted the South. It left its roads, railroads, factories and farms in ruin and all but wiped out an entire generation of men. 5 days after General Lee surrendered, President Lincoln was assassinated. By the end of 1865, the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery across the nation, was added to the United States Constitution.
The tariffs that were raised from 15 to 45% remained the law for a long time. And that's one reason why the South was unable to financially recover until about World War II.